There's a dog in your purse. Sorry.
Well, before taking your questions, let me just conclude by saying this. As the material in front of you shows, the politicians who support Senate Bill 5 and Issue 2 obviously do not embarrass easily. They are shameless. They're all for pay and benefit cuts as long as those cuts apply to police, firefighters, and teachers, but not to themselves. They're against double dipping unless they themselves are the double dippers. They think paid leave and sick days should be limited as long as they are free to miss work whenever they want and still get paid. In short, Governor Kasich and his legislative allies believe in calling for sacrifice as long as they and their rich campaign contributors aren't being asked to share in it. You know, there's a word for politicians who propose one set of rules for themselves and a different one for everyone else. That word is hypocrite, and it's spelled with a capital H. Thank you very much, and we'll be happy to answer whatever questions you may have.
Dale, when you use the word exempt, does Senate Bill 5 itself use the word exempt, or is this an exemption that exists under current law?
Yeah, it isn't. Back in '83, when I'm sorry, back in 1983, when the original collective bargaining bill was passed, it is true that elected officials were not included. They were exempted. But let's remember a couple of things. Number one, the Issue 2 campaign is saying, and as a matter of fact, I've got an example right here. They just put something out yesterday that said it's a myth that the opponents of Senate Bill 5, the opponents are saying that Issue 2 exempts politicians. Fact, that is absolutely false. Here's the language. Issue 2 asks that all government employees make the same sacrifices. Clearly, all government employees are not being asked to make the same sacrifices. Right? They don't say, well, except, of course, for the politicians who already exempted themselves. They say all government workers. So that's myth. Number two, and I think this is even more to the point, Jim. Legislators had a chance to demonstrate that they were willing to accept some sacrifice themselves, to share in the sacrifice themselves. There was an amendment to the budget bill, you all will recall, that would have decreased the pay of the legislators by 5%. That passed the Senate. It died in the House, who coincidentally, the House is coincidentally run by the biggest double dipper in the state of Ohio, and the man who says that he and his colleagues are underpaid. That is hypocrisy, pure and simple.
If I recall correctly, that amendment was taken out in conference committee, and the Democrats on that committee voted for that, removing that language. I mean, are they also guilty of hypocrisy?
All I can tell you, I would say to you that any legislator, I don't care what party they're in, any legislator that is asking sacrifice from regular government workers or from the public at large and who refuses to share it themselves are hypocrites. But remember, many of those people you're talking about did not vote for Senate Bill 5. And that's really the point we're making here today. If you voted for Senate Bill 5 and you're saying, oh, we need the sacrifice from everybody, but you're exempting yourself, that's hypocrisy.
But haven't you kind of hemmed the current legislators in, because we all know they're not allowed to vote for a pay change while they're sitting in office for themselves?
They can certainly vote for one that will take effect in the next legislature. In fact, that was the rationale that was given by the people who proposed the legislation. They said, let's demonstrate to the people of Ohio that we're willing to share in the sacrifice. Right?
I thought the governor's salary was set by law. Is he actually eligible for step increases right now?
Yeah. That's right. It's a formula, and Tara, if you want to add anything to this, because you just looked at it as recently as yesterday, it's set in formula, so there's a base pay, and then it says that it will increase annually. Do you know the exact language? Can you remember?
It's an annual increase of 3% for the amount of the increase in the consumer price index from 2007 to 2008, whichever is less.
But didn't that run out in 2008? Didn't that expire?
You may be referring to the legislator step in pay increase. The legislators had the pay increase, I think it was from 01 to 08, and that expired.
But I think it was the same law. So I mean, was there a different timeline on the governor's?
But the governor's, yeah, the governor's is still protected in current law.
But we can circle up and we can print it out.
That
Yeah,
was
we can-
an
we can
annual
print it
increase
off.
of 3% or the CPI from 07 to 08, whichever's less.
Yeah, I have it in the spreadsheet at my desk, but I'm pretty sure it was 07 to 08 and it was like 4%, so they're never going to get that. They locked in that specific year-over-year increase, so it's going to always be the 3%.
And did you guys estimate the pensions that you thought people were receiving?
Yeah, so on the JLEC form, are you referring to the fact that they put ranges in? They only check ranges?
Well, that and you can't get individual pension amounts.
Right, so they check if it, so did we go the most conservative?
No, we gave a range. This is how you do it on your financial disclosure. As a legislator, you're required to give ranges. So, for example, Speaker Batchelder put down an F, which on the form specifies 100,000 or greater. The next step below that is 50 to 99. So you're only required to disclose your income from the range.
And so in case of Speaker Batchelder, since he said it was either 100,000 or more, we put 100,000.
And did you guys look at some of the pension law issues where like for example, the lawmakers can buy time at a discount?
We're aware of that. We didn't
Yeah.
factor it in here because we don't know who's elected to exercise that.
That's definitely the case. That's another perk, one that we didn't put in our spreadsheets, but that is in fact another perk that they get, and that's uniquely situated for them.
You say, Kate, the governor would be exempt from the performance pay provisions. I mean, who would determine that anyway? And don't the voters really, aren't they the ones who rate the performance of a governor in the election?
Well, let me just say this, Bill. I think the voters are rating the performance of the governor. If you look at the public opinion polls, I can certainly understand why the governor would not want to have his pay determined by what the voters think of his performance, because he'd have a hard time eating. But I think the broader point we're making is this. If you're going to claim that we are in such dire economic straits that everybody has to sacrifice, then sacrifice yourselves as well. You got Lou Blessing up here. I earn my pay, and I'm not ashamed of what I make. The implication clearly is all these other public workers, they're not earning their pay. But we're earning ours, and by God, we're not going to give back a penny. I got Bill Batchelder over here, double dipper extraordinaire. We're frankly underpaid here. I think if voters knew the extent of the perks and the privileges and the pay that these folks are getting, as we've outlined here, I think they would be shocked. I think they would be outraged.
Do you know whether Governor Strickland gave any car allowances to any of his upper staff?
Tara,
Yeah, and I think that it probably happened. We don't have it all detailed of who it was given to, who it wasn't given to, but that's why I pointed out at the end of my remarks is the perks in and of itself. I mean, that's one debate, but it's the hypocrisy that is the other. Cabinet members under the previous administration shared in the across-the-board pay cut. I mean, there were certainly sacrifices, and that wasn't even, they of course weren't even supporters of Senate Bill 5 because it didn't even exist. So there was that history of some of those sacrifices that I believe as of yet we haven't seen from this administration.
Did you have a car allowance when you were there?
No, I didn't have a car allowance.
And by the way, there is nothing stopping Governor Kasich from saying, in the spirit of shared sacrifice, I'm going to give back, or I won't take that 3% step increase that I'm entitled to every year. Have you heard him say that? I haven't heard him say that.
Did Governor Strickland not take that?
Yeah, Governor Strickland, and I don't know for how many years, but I believe he waived some of those increases. And I think that, I'm going to offer this to you, but I would like to double check if that's something you're interested. I think that's probably why we see the discrepancy between the Kasich salary and the Strickland salary, because for several years Strickland did not accept those automatic increases. And I think then when Kasich came in, per ORC, the formula, the 3% accumulating each year, that kicks in. And that's why I believe we see the higher salary for Governor Kasich.
You list the mileage on here for legislators as a perk, but I mean, if I'm driving 200 miles round trip to my job, and because my job is required to be in Columbus and I'm required to live in Cleveland, I'm not sure I would see that necessarily as a perk.
Except for the fact that if you're a regular taxpayer, you can't do that. You can't
But aren't the
take your
circumstances
commuting
different
costs.
because of the legal requirements? I mean, I'm required to live in my district. I'm required to come to the state house to vote. I can't vote for my district at the state house, in the legislative session.
We have a state where the unemployment rate is at 9% or thereabouts. A lot of folks, Jim, don't have the luxury that all of us in this room do to live real close to their jobs. Many of them have to go places and pretty far away to get jobs. Now, they're not required by law, but they're required by circumstance to do it. But the point is, regular people cannot get mileage reimbursements for driving to and from their principal places of work. The IRS forbids that. The legislature, though, is different. They have a different set of rules for themselves. And that's the point, again, we're making.